lounging, son.
Welcome back to another episode of the Comic Lounge Podcast, guys. I am your host, with the most, and with me, as always, is the mighty Ryan. Ryan, say hi to the good people.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
We're continuing on with our extravaganza, and we're going to talk about a personal favorite. I mean, actually, both the comics we read this week actually were personal favorites of mine. But it's Spawn, and usually we talk about like the beginnings and like the first issue of release, but we already talked about that in Volume 1 in one of the early episodes. Make sure to go check that out. But we're going to talk about Todd McFarlane and and the power of Spawn and the hype around it. That he actually lined up the best writers of that time. Go ahead and write single issues for Spawn, and of course we're talking about Alan Moore. Of course, we're talking about Neil Gaiman, and of course, we're talking about Frank Miller. Dude, like let's go hard.
You're also missing Dave Sim, but I wouldn't necessarily call him one of the best writers in comics at the time. He's also kind of problematic. He's a problematic human being. But you can't. I'll just get that out of the way because we have to talk about that issue. I mean, it also hasn't been. If you look at Spawn number 9, which we're talking about 8 through 11. And 9 and 10 for a long time couldn't be reprinted for reasons that had to do with the writers attached to those specific issues. That has changed, obviously, with at least with the compendium that's come out. You can get 1 through 50 in there, I think, unimpeded. But yeah, Dave Sim, creator of Cerebus, I think he was the one that started the world, or he did the world record for the most comic books produced by a single creator, or for indie books. So he hit issue 300. That's the record Spawn broke. Was Cerebus. But yeah, I think that it's clear why he got these writers. He fucking threw a crap ton of money at them, and that's not to say I'm not saying anything that's bad. I mean, if I had that kind of money and I had a comic book, I'm going to throw it at the best in the biz, like some of the most talented people in comics. I mean, but you hear about that, like, and it's funny, cartoonist kayfabe kind of they've talked about it, like this might have been someone's first Alan Moore comic. This might have been someone's first Neil Gaiman, someone's first Frank Miller. Like they, especially because like at the time, what Neil Gaiman was doing Sandman, what little kid, that same little kid that's picking up an issue of Spawn isn't necessarily picking up an issue of Sandman. Now, maybe if you're a little bit older, you've been reading Sandman, right? Or, Frank Miller, maybe you didn't read Dark Knight Returns yet, know, and this is your Sin City. And same thing with Alan Moore. It's all of these writers have already made a name for themselves long before Spawn came out. But Todd McFarlane's one of the hottest artists in comics. Image is one of the hottest new publishers in the industry and is producing hit after hit. After Youngblood blows the door open, Spawn fucking steps right on through that fucking door and continues to obliterate records.
And honestly, Spawn right now is one of the most fun comics that I'm reading. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. I hop back, we talked about this multiple times. I hop back in the 290s. Or 390s, 290s. I can't remember that. Yeah, it's one of the most fun comics that I'm writing. I'm glad that the Todd father is back in some semblance of way. But backtracking to these specific issues, crazy to see how Todd McFarlane works with other writers, right? Because for the most part, the early days of Spawn was McFarlane everything, right? Yeah, I think a couple times he didn't write the script or something along those lines. Well, basically he wrote, did the lines, did the inks. But yeah, that's a lot of work to do, single person. So the fact that he has these crazy writers coming in, and these are really dense writers that we're talking about. We're talking about Alan Moore, we're talking about Neil Gaiman, we're talking about Frank Miller. There's a lot of density in their writing, and so I can only imagine what Todd had to deal with when dealing with their scripts, right? When dealing with their with the comic scripts, because I heard it's kind of legendary that Alan Moore has just like insane amount, very heavily worded scripts and very specific as to what he's showing.
Oh, it's insane, dude. I got a script. I interviewed Don Simpson recently, and he sent me he sent me the script for this In Pictopia book that they did together in the 80s. It was for raising money for a legal case. And it was supposed to be an 8-page story. The script he sent him was 28 pages.
Jeez.
And it looked like the work of an insane person. Like it was on an old school typewriter. It just looked like it. I mean, I love Alan Moore. Don't get me wrong, but it looked like the work of like a serial killer typing this manic fucking note. Like all I could picture was this, like just fucking psycho.
It's like a dude with a big beard just hunched over, and there's like no light besides like a little candle, and he's
yeah. So
Alan
yeah,
Moore's Chris, bro.
Yeah, I can only imagine, like you said, I can only imagine like Todd McFarlane. This is the best writer he's worked with at this point. You know what I mean? Like the minute he gets a script for Spawn 8, that's the best writer he's ever worked with, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think no shade at any of the writers he wrote with before or he drew for before, but Alan Moore, I think, is like the pinnacle at the time. I mean, he'd even been out of comic books for a little while and gets pulled back.
He was well into his reclusivity.
Yeah, and he gets pulled back into Image. You know, I think Jim Valentino played a huge part in that. And I don't know how I read it in the single, so like you can start to see the ads for that 1963 book. I don't know if you've ever read it. We should definitely do an episode. It was so it's by Alan Moore, Steve Bissette, Rick Veitch, Dave Gibbons, John Toddleman, Don Simpson, Jim Valentino. So it's like a lot of the guys from like the Swamp Thing run.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's all like analogs for Marvel superheroes of like the 60s. So it's pretty cool. I mean, you definitely should check it out. It never finished because the annual was supposed to come out and it just never happened for whatever. I mean, there's so many different like answers for why it didn't happen, but you know, that's how he gets pulled in. And then obviously you see the other guys at Image pulling him. You see Todd pulling him for Spawn, Violator. You see Rob pulling him for like Supreme. You see Alan Moore working on Wildcats. So it's like he's getting pulled in all these different directions, right? And like everybody kind of wants a piece of him. But I'm pretty sure this is the first book he does for Image.
Yeah. And it's the best. There's a lot to be said about the first the first 15 issues of Spawn. Like there's things that happen in those issues that were just like some of the most memorable things. Like, but like having this lineup of writers just come in here and fucking kill it. But like freaking Alan Moore is like the freaking icing on the cake and the cherry on top. That's one of my favorite Spawn stories.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's not even really Spawn centric. You know,
no,
it's all about
it's Billy Kincaid, man. That
Billy Kincaid, that sick son of a bitch. You're seeing the different levels of hell. You're watching as his soul goes into this and regrows into like this cocoon type thing. I mean, like I think Todd like does some of his best work in this issue, and I think it's because he has to match the level of talent. Not to say he wasn't talented, but he has to fucking come just as hard as Alan's coming with this script. It's such a weird story, you know. And I think that's one of the things too is if you look at these 4 issues, they don't read like an arc, you know what I mean? And they don't even lead into the next. They don't pull from the one because I read issue 7 before I read 8 because we had read 1 through 6 for the last time we talked about Spawn on the show, and I just didn't want. I'm like I can't just skip an issue. I'll read this and then I kept going. I even went past 11. I stopped up until the Grant Morrison issues because I know that we're gonna talk about those too eventually.
Yeah.
So I had to stop, but I got super back into Spawn, and I didn't want to stop reading. But this one it's phenomenal. I think his art is so good. I think that Alan is expanding on the mythos, much like what we're gonna see with Neil Gaiman's issue. You see another like the Vindicator, which is one of the Violator,
one of the brothers.
And I don't know how you read it, but the posters, it just reminded me of like the inserts that they used to do, and you get fucking Frank Miller's Spawn. I mean, and it just keeps coming. Like the pinups keep coming, but I think that
I
just
those
to pick.
pinups. Those pinups were fantastic, dude.
Yeah, I think I wish we
reprints
saw
and
stuff
printouts,
like
right?
that. I wish we saw stuff like that in comics. You know, like it's just. I think the '90s were just. Not even just '90s comics, but '90s Image. The beginning of it, you're seeing they were bringing in all these different creators, all these people that maybe didn't necessarily do an Image book, but would do pinups for them. There's a Walter Simonson fucking Spawn pinup. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. But I do love. For me, like what I really loved about this is expanding a little bit on like the different hell spawns and Malbolgia and the depiction of the different levels of hell. That tower.
That was one of the freshest depictions of hell ever. I mean, and this is like whole other this whole nether realm created for us, and this just turns it on its ear, right? Because there's not a single place in this afterlife that you want to be, especially when Vindicator is sitting here, they go in Roman numerals and just describing every level of hell as they're walking by, and man, it's just fucking like only Alan Moore would think of something as sick and depraved as this. It's fucking dope, dude. It adds to that mythos of Spawn to like really show you this twisted imagery of the world that Spawn exists in, and the art just elevates, dude. The art just elevates this complete depiction. I really love that when Billy is trying to run from the Vindicator, he tries to go up the tower, and then they show you like that freaking one point view where it's going up the tower with the spiral stairs. Oh man, that's like one of my favorite pages, dude.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, I mean it's one of the best issues of Spawn, and it doesn't even have Spawn in it. He's not even in the fucking book. I mean, he talks about him.
Yeah.
But you don't actually see, like, Spawn's not actually, like, Al Simmons is not in the book.
Not Al.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a twisted villain. I'm pretty sure, like, maybe that's kind of why Billy Kincaid was in the book prior to this, right? Like, because he had to set somebody up for Alan to have in this issue. Like, obviously he knew he didn't like get the fucking script for 8 after he wrote 6. There's no way, right? Even though the Image books were always late, I think Todd for the most part had the best scheduling, for the founding fathers in terms of like getting it out on time.
Consistency,
yeah, consistency. That's what I was looking for. But yeah, I think that Todd just was, I think, at the peak of his powers. I know that artists always get better, and I do like his stuff now, but this was my favorite Todd McFarlane, was the early days of Spawn. From his panel structure, the way he breaks up the panels, you see like fucking blood as the panel border, fucking splatter.
Chains as a splatter.
Yeah.
The border. He used a lot of scrolls. Like whenever he's told like lore, scrolls would be like the little thought boxes.
Yeah, I mean, now we're talking Spawn 9 for that one for sure. But yeah, I think that, and we can go. Let's move on to number 9. I mean, I think
that's a good segue.
Yeah, it's a good segue. Now, this is probably one of the I often say Todd's issues, his writing is very fucking verbose. Well, this might be the most verbose Spawn comic that you will read, and it's written by Neil Gaiman. I don't mind it, but I always, for some reason, like whenever it just goes, like especially the newscasters when they're talking, like,
oh my God,
you lose me with that, dude. Like I will just skim it. I won't even fucking read it.
What I'll do, I'll read one. You know how there's 3, right? There's the liberal, the conservative, and the super conservative. Like, you know what I mean? So I'll read one box each. I basically get the gist of it. Like, I'm an adult now. I get these things.
Yeah.
But it's just. I will say this about Todd. Whenever Todd is like directly hands-on involved with the Spawn issue, there's almost a guarantee that in that story arc, at least once or twice, you'll see those 3 reporters.
Yeah, every fucking time, every time. I did want to say too that I forgot to say with the last issue, but I love how they were dedicating the comic books back then to specific creators. Like, for instance, number 9 is dedicated to Harvey Kurtzman. 10 is Don Heck. I already put 8 away, but 11 is to Gil Kane, and like they did it. All of the creators did it in the beginning. They dedicated to Jack Kirby, a bunch of the artists, you know. But this, I think, this issue, and it sucks that for such a long time you couldn't get this unless you had the actual issue because it wasn't being reprinted, especially with, you know. I mean, this is the center of the fucking lawsuits that took place between Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane that ended up including Miracle Man. You know, like so much things. Medieval Spawn, Angela is the name of this issue, and it is the main character that we're really focused on in this one because she, from back in medieval times, hunts the Hellspawn.
She's been a bad bitch since, and we love her for it. Like this, like honestly, Angela was one of the most memorable characters, easily one of the most recognizable, most memorable characters in like all of comics. Right? There was a lot of inspiration that this character particularly drew from, but the simple fact that she was always a Spawn badass, that it resonated with the many other characters Todd McFarlane birthed, like one of the best characters ever created, and she's Marvel now, and she's super watered down. And it isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like she's not the Angela we knew and we grew up with.
Well, it's just not Angela. Angela was created to hunt Hellspawn. I mean, like that is what the fucking character was meant to be, and you take her, and she's not. To me, it's not even the same character. It's just not. You know, like Marvel's Angela is.
It's a derivative.
Yes, it's a variant. Is what it is.
Yeah, it's a variant. It's a variant. You want to get Marvel on this? It's a variant.
Yeah, it's a fucking variant. But I really enjoyed this issue. Even, you know, it's like, again, building up the mythos of Spawn, which, you know, Todd up until this point, like there wasn't a huge lore going into this. There's only 7 issues out, and you see Alan Moore expanding. You see Neil Gaiman expanding. I think it's just those two that really expanded on the mythos. I don't think Dave Sim really did much in terms of that, and Frank Miller didn't really do that either. But this one, you know, like I think 8, 9, and 10 I really liked. 9 I liked in terms of like, you know, seeing a new character. And I don't think I didn't really get to read this. I've read this only maybe a couple times now, you know, because growing up, like it wasn't in the fucking trades. I couldn't fucking find it, you know, as I got older. And it was always so much money, I wasn't going to drop the money on it. But as we've talked about, I got that short box full of small books. But, you know, I think this is also where we meet Cagliostro, right? As well.
Yes, this is also first Cagliostro. One of the sneakiest bastards in the entire Spawn lore. Yeah, you know, he's being all drunken wise men in an alley.
Dude, and then you got, look, again with the pinup, Jim Lee drawing, 90s Jim Lee drawing Angela. I'm going to show all these.
There's a very big difference between 90s Jim Lee and the Jim Lee we have now. I just hope people know that.
That's why I said it. And that's
Jim
why I felt.
90s Jim Lee was a fucking revelation. Honestly, it's like, you know, you can honestly say that Jim Lee is the difference between everyone before him and everyone after him. Like,
yeah,
that's an easy call. I can't wait for Wildcats.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about Wildcats too. Yeah, I'm excited about that. But
I'm like, did you see that the person commented on our image video, and he left us the link to the Wildcats episodes from the 90s?
Yeah, I did. I saw that.
I saw that. Hey, I'm talking about Spawn. I didn't read 10. I wasn't sure how you were reading it, so I didn't read 10.
You did not read 10.
I didn't read 10. I read everything else but 10.
Well, you should be ashamed of yourself. Okay.
Ashamed of myself.
You should be ashamed of yourself. I still love you, but I have to talk about it. I have to talk about it. So Spawn 10 with I don't know how else to say. I'm not gonna go into detail. I just know that Dave Sim there's issues surrounding him, and I know that one of our good friends, Jen, was shamed via a DM on Instagram because she shared a picture of his Batwang parody that he did with like Cerebus, right? So she posted that picture, and then somebody was like, how could you do that? Do you not know how he feels about women? Blah, blah, blah. So I just feel like I have to talk about the issue, though. Like, I don't want to skip this because this is part of, the 4 creators. And I actually really enjoyed this book, this particular issue. This is where you have Spawn walking through hell, and you see all the different superhero hands coming through the bars. So you see Spider-Man. I mean, and it's clear who they are. And then you have these
very clear.
Then you have these people standing there with hoods over their head and nooses around their neck. And that is supposed to be the creators of these characters. So it really is talking about like the injustice of creators creating these characters and basically not benefiting from it. And I think that it's a really important issue. I mean, you've read it before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. I really dig this issue. I mean, even from seeing like this version of Superman, who's clearly Superman in the shadows, I think they did it in a clever way that they kept it under wraps. If you go back, well, I'm reading at the single issues. If you look at the letters pages that they got for issue 10, crazy. Like the response that Todd got about the issue was not the best. Some people saying like they don't want to read Spawn anymore, and how could he do that? How could he like talk about like those creators didn't know any better back then? But that's neither here nor there. I just think that it's a really cool issue, and then it ends with Spawn going into Todd's house. And he's like, oh, his wife's name's Wanda too, and he has a daughter named Cyan. So I mean, and like you hear all of these things, like Todd, almost every character in this book, Al Simmons, there's a real Al Simmons. It was a friend of his. Terry Fitzgerald, real person. Wanda is his wife's name. Cyan is his daughter's name. So I think it's kind of cool that at the end of it all, when it's all about these creators, Cerebus takes him to Todd McFarlane's house. He doesn't actually say it's Todd, but we all know it's Todd. And, at the very end, they make sure to say, in big ass letters, that Spawn is a trademark and copyright of Todd McFarlane and Cerebus is a trademark copyright of Dave Sim. And then forever is right underneath it, So I thought it was a really good issue. I hate to say that it's my favorite of the bunch because of, whatever.
Because of what it meant.
But what it meant, to me, it was really
what it represented, what it represented, what Dave Sim and what Farland set out to do, and they did it. They did it without fear. They did it, and you at the very least, you can respect that.
There's a lot of creators that have had issues over the past years that people come out and speak out against, and that's fine, and I can respect that. I mean, Dave Sim just put out a book not that long ago, and I read it. I got an advanced copy, and it was madness. It was like so like it gets to a point where it's so incoherent, but it's supposed like it was based on the strange life and death of Alex Raymond, who was an old school cartoonist from back in the 40s, and there's all this like thing about how he died, and the book was really interesting. But that's so I don't. The last one is my least favorite. Spawn 11 by Frank Miller was not really for me. I didn't really care for it, to be honest with you.
It read like a Dark Knight Spawn placeholder. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I felt throughout that thing.
Yeah.
You know what I really like here? Like, depending on the writer, like there's very subtle changes in Todd McFarlane's art.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I love that. And I love.
I mean, you like that. Yeah. That's obviously Frank Miller. That's obviously.
That's Dark Knight Returns. That's Batman with a hole in his chest, but falling down from the helicopter with the gun. That's what that is.
Yep.
But like it goes to show you like that Todd was always especially with someone like Frank Miller, show that he really studied the people before him. And that's kind of what great artists do. You study the people who come before you, so that way you can take that and make it your own. And You know, that just I think that was a really great example artist wise of the range that Todd McFarlane has or had, whatever, however you want to look at it.
You say has.
Has.
He did. I don't think he lost the skill. He just chooses not to gift us or gift the world his art.
Yeah.
But I think he's fully capable of continuing to do this stuff. He just doesn't do it, you know, for whatever reason. You know, I guess I don't know because you love the medium.
You're yeah. Because you're the fucking Todd father. You don't have to do shit.
Draw fucking comics, goddammit. You didn't even give us just one fucking issue a year, at least. Just one fucking comic. It's not even so much.
It's like Jim Lee, right? We want one issue from Jim Lee a year. We're good.
Yeah, and instead we get these covers, these random covers.
These Twitch streams on the weekend.
Yeah. Anyways, but I do agree that I think these 4 issues really show the range that Todd has because they all do have a different kind of vibe to it. And it's not just because of who's writing the book. It's because when you have a script from a certain writer, they're going to pull stuff out of you that maybe you didn't know you could do, or you don't do because that's just not your go-to. But like certain writers also will put like, hey, this is what we should do. This is what I'm thinking of how you should interpret it. Now, I don't know that Todd listened to everybody. I don't think
how well Todd does.
You know, so maybe he's like, oh, that's a great suggestion, but I'm going to do it my way. But I don't feel like necessarily that he did that. I feel like if you're going to spend this kind of money to have these writers write your book, you should kind of do what they suggest, you know, and you should fucking emulate.
And also if like, you know, if I was a young Todd McFarlane and fucking I had Alan Moore, I had Frank Miller, and I had freaking Neil Gaiman talking to me about, hey, we should try this. I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, bro, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Alan Moore, sir, whatever you want. But also, I'd be like, watch this though.
I feel like he fucking there's some stuff he did, and I feel like there's probably some stuff he just fucking completely ignored.
Absolutely, it's like I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah, but I do think that him getting those writers created some of just the creativeness surrounding these 4 issues, this small little bubble, was awesome, right? Like we got such a different type of Spawn from issue to issue to issue. And if it did introduce people to these writers, like I said, like what if it's their first time reading Alan Moore comic? Then they fall down rabbit holes. Like, I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the only person that discovers a writer or an artist and then wants to get everything from before. You know, I'm not unique in that respect. So I think that this is probably the case for a lot of people. I definitely think that they were great, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed all of them. Frank Miller was my least favorite, but that's why I don't really have much to say on it. And I love Frank Miller, but not this one. You know, this one just kind of felt like a whatever story. You know, like that's just how I took it.
I'm telling you, it's a Dark Knight Returns reimagined with Spawn.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
He's preparing for the eventual Batman Spawn comic that he's gonna fucking write with Todd drawing. That's literally what it was. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I love Spawn. Huh?
Yeah. I don't know. It was just a practice run. It was okay. But yeah, after I got done reading that issue, I actually went to try and go look to see if there was a collected Batman Spawn. Can't find one.
I think I have an extra copy.
A little dill bit, not a dill bot yet, but just a little
dill bit. Little dill bit. I think I have an extra copy. I'll send you one if I can find it. I just gotta search for. I'm sure I have more than one copy of that book. But yeah, I like I said, like Spawn, and I think you've said it too, like gearing up to 300 kind of reignited my love for the character, made me want to go back and read more. And this is yet another good excuse with the 30th anniversary, like having already talked Volume 1. Now we're talking these. Definitely going to have to talk the 3-issue arc of Grant Morrison and Greg Capullo bursting up to the Spawn scene.
Greg Capullo, bro. Look, I model my whole freaking everything after Greg Capullo. I love that guy.
Yeah, I love Greg Capullo, so I can't wait to dive into those.
He's one of the greatest. He's one of the best to ever do it, and he's gonna go down in comic book history. I don't care. Like
I agree. I agree. I don't think there's many people that would
He's-
fight you on that either. So
he is the fucking man, dude.
yeah.
But yeah, that's all I gotta say about these Spawn issues. Go read
Yes.
them.
Yeah, and like I said, like I've been saying too, it's easy to get them now. First of all, they have the Spawn Origins trades, which I think there's like 20 volumes of that, and then they switch over to another format of like branding. But they have the compendiums out now. So they have, I think there's 2 out, which covers the first 100 issues of Spawn. So definitely go pick them up, go check them out, and make sure you continue to fucking stay with us as we I don't want to say get through, but as we continue our journey with Image Comics and their entire history with all the different titles that we're going to talk about. And also make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. You can follow Dylan
At the Dillbot on Instagram.
Okay, Dope Dillbot on Twitter. Okay. Anyways, that's all we got. That's all we got. And on that note, we're out.
Hey, buds.